So welcome back to another episode with Alumni Lab. Today we have the absolute privilege of being joined with Alok, who just graduated actually the PGP program at ISB. So today we're going to be talking about who really attends the program, what makes you the right fit, and also kind of what's next in your journey, because this is, a one-year master's. There's this idea of where you're going in the future. So those are kind of the topics that we're going to be dealing with today. So first off, welcome, Alok. We're really, really happy to have you here. I was wondering if you could start us off by just giving a little bit of background about where you were before you went to ISB and also where you're going afterwards, because there's some exciting news on what you're starting in a month.
Yeah, thank you so much, Siona. Uh, I'm Alok, like Siona said. Prior to joining ISB, I was working at a FMCG giant in India called ITC, which is a tobacco-based company, which is now moved to a lot more foods and agribusiness and hotels and all other business and stuff. It's a 110-year-old company. And before that, I was doing my engineering at one of the premier institutes in India, the Indian Institute of Technology at Kharagpur. So all in all, I had 3 years of work ex, and ranging from projects management to operations management for one of the businesses at ITC. But how I thought that there was few things like finance or marketing or organizational development which I did not really know about. So that's when I thought that to bridge all these gaps in my knowledge, I need to do an MBA. And then I started researching, which schools would be the best fit in India, because I wanted to stay close to my family. ISB always ticks off the list when you talk about MBA in India. So that's how ISB happened. And last 1 year has been great. So I recently graduated, I think. Last Monday was my graduation day, where we tossed our hats, and I'm moving to Unilever as a branch manager afterwards. It's starting in the month of May, and I'm really excited about that.
So you talked about, I think what's really interesting about this specific program is oftentimes you hear about business schools predominantly having people from business backgrounds. And as you just mentioned, you have this engineering background. I was looking at some of the statistics, and I think it's almost 60% of the PGP class is coming from an engineering background. Do you have any idea of why that might be? Is it a really technical program that requires you to have more of that analytical mindset? Or what's really the motivation for people coming from that engineering background to go into a business program?
That's an interesting question, because it's not really about being a technical program. It's more related to the supply of talent that's there. So in India, it's primarily, when you're talking about undergrad, it's mostly people have due to lack of information. Primarily, it's more people mostly think their careers in engineering first, and then they think what to do next. So the whole, let's say 80% of the talent pool in India after their high school generally go off to do their engineering first, and then they think about what they need to do with their lives. So that's one of the primary reasons why ISB has a lot of engineering people coming to it, applying to it, and then enrolling in the program. It's not really a more technical based program, I would say. It's primarily because of this particular reason, that the people who are applying to, they are primarily engineers because they chose to study engineering prior to in their undergrad times.
Right. And before we even pressed record on this, you were talking about how ISB is really good with respect to its diversity. Could you explain a little bit more by what you actually meant by that?
Sure. So that's ISB is, I think, one of the only schools in Asia, I would say, that presses a lot on diversity. And if you compare to similar kind of B schools in India, like the IIMs, Indian Institute of Management, which is more government led. So compared to that, ISB actually benchmarks it to the colleges in the universities in the US or Europe. And that's why the theory of diversity comes more into play. So in IIMs, if you see, it's more based on merit. You have to give an exam called the Common Aptitude Test, which is called CAT, and it's primarily more on merit, that you have to score above this percentile, and then you get shortlisted, and then all your previous academics have to take place. However, ISB does pay weightage to just your academics. It also pays, what work you have done, what extracurricular activities you have, whether you are from special background, such as you are a musician, or you have done spent years in the army. So I would say ISB is like one of the only places, not only in India, I would say across Asia and the world, where you would see a doctor, an ex-army veteran, a naval army officer, an architect, and all of them in the same classroom. And the experiences that you get from their past history, and how they connect the same things to the concepts taught in the classroom, that's really amazing. This, as I was saying before, like I had a classmate who had 26 years of work experience, because he was an army veteran, and that was more than my age, and he actually fought a war in 1999, which was between India and Pakistan. So the kind of insights that he has, and the kind of things that he has seen over the past few years, and listening to that, gives a lot of lessons, which is something you learn beyond the classroom. So that's really amazing, and that's what makes ISB's diversity focus a lot more, great, I would say, as compared to other B schools.
Yeah, and I think even going back to, they're focusing on this more well-rounded individual. Like there's people who have GMAT scores in the early 600s versus the late 700s, and you're having all these different people coming in, and it really is about the strength of your overall application. I guess something I'm kind of curious about is, a lot of the times people are worried they're not going to get into these top schools because they don't necessarily have like a big brand name on their resume, or they might have less work experience because it is only 2 years required. What would you say to the people who don't have these big names on their resumes, on how they could stand out to the application committee?
Yeah, so that's again a very good question. So I would say, so the kind of classmates and batchmates I had during my time at ISB, I would not really say that they had a lot of them did not have big brand names. However, the kind of experiences they had, that was kind of outstanding, and that's what set them apart over the course of time. So I had one of my members who was in my study group itself. She had just 2 years of work ex, and she did not come from a great brand school, undergrad school, I would say. However, she had worked very close to the top management in Reliance, which is like Mukesh Ambani's company, if you guys know. So he's the richest man in Asia. So his company, and she used to work with the top management at a very early age. So and other than that, she was a kick-ass Bollywood dancer. She used to do fusion dancing, and she's played a lot of sports. So this kind of profile, that makes you something outstanding, other than someone who has just studied his entire life. So this the so ISB, like I said, it's more about, it pays more focus on the experiences that you had, rather than whether you have this big brand name or not. Brand name, of course, that gives you an edge, I would say, but the experiences that you really have, that gives you an edge over others, a competitive advantage over the others, which is really what's needed to get into ISB.
And so I kind of want to lean into, you were talking about your study group member. How much of the entire experience is focused on this kind of collaborative, team-based environment versus how much of it is more independent learning, would you say?
Oh, so the curriculum at ISB is structured in that way that, in every course that you have in every term, so you have few assignments, a few projects that you have to do collaboratively in a group of 5 to 6. And and in the same course, you have many assignments and projects that you have to do individually. So I would say it's a 50-50 or a 60-40, tending more towards, collaborative environment rather than individualistic. However, as we tries to balance things out, so it does not primarily focus on individual assignments, nor does it primarily focus on collaborative. So for the well-rounded growth of an individual professionally, so both of these things are needed, and I think ISB really balances it out really well while designing its curriculum.
Yeah, and so there is this collaborative aspect, but there is still some individual learning that you're going to have to do, and that makes absolute sense. You can't just do everything in a group. So you talked about before, there's this big diversity that they're trying to pull in. There's people from a variety of backgrounds, whether that's architecture, whether or not they've been working for 2 years or 26 years. Do you think there's any other attributes that ISB is looking for when they're trying to get or trying to determine if you're the right fit for the program and for the school?
So I would again say, so ISB really focuses on 2 or 3 things, and even that's kind of normal that any other business school will look into the same aspects. First of all, of course, there should be integrity in whatever you're saying, right? Whatever qualities or values you are proposing in your application, that should be very integral to you, and that should be something that has not been copied from anywhere else, and that should stand out. Like, you can't just say that I have scored XYZ GPA in my undergrad or something like that, because there will be 1,000 other applicants who are equally academically inclined. It's more about that we have shown that academics is something that you value, sports is something that you value, music is something that you value. So that kind of integrity ISB really focuses a lot into. Second thing I would say is consistency. So if you are showing this particular value, that you have been consistent in following your goals and following your ambition, and there's a story that connects from your starting point, let's say from your early teenage years to wherever you are right now. So I think that would be a really great point to showcase to any other B school, that you, whatever the case may be, you have never wavered away from your final path or whatever goal you're aspiring to is. And that's something ISB or any other B school can come and help you reach those goals at a faster rate. So I think these are the 2 values I would say that ISB looks forward in an application.
Right, and then there's an interview component to all of this big long admissions. In your own interview, what was that experience like with regards to how long it was, what kind of questions they were asking you, the level of formality, those kinds of things? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'll just also just give you a brief glimpse of how the ISB application is actually structured. So it's just like any other application. You have a long I think 20-30 pager or something. You have to fill in details about your academic school, since your high school to your undergrad to your work ex, what projects you have undertaken in your work ex, some letters of recommendation, your extracurricular activities, any awards or achievements that you have, and there are 2 or 3 essays that you have to write to get into ISB. So once that application, the application committee goes through it, and then you get shortlisted for the final interviews. And however your strong application in the written application is, it does not matter, because it's more or less binary when it comes to interview. Either get in or you get out. So so in the interview, it's I'll just not talk about mine. I'll also talk about my other peers. So it ranges from, let's say, as short as 10 minutes, and I have seen people get selected in 10 minutes, to as long as 1 hour. So um, so basically ISB generally does not look into rather, so generally it does not focus on selecting people. It's rather mostly on eliminating people. So it kind of looks into the red flags more. It thinks that everybody is in, however we'll search for a red flag, and if you find a red flag, you're out. So it's something of that sort. So it's more eliminative rather than selective in nature. So my experience per se was, I was more towards the short interview process. My interview ran, I think, 15-20 minutes only. It was very conversational in nature, and ISB is one of the few B schools in India where the interviews are taken by the alumni, not by the professors. So in IIMs, generally the professors take your interview. However, at ISB, it's more of the senior alumni that are there at ISB, and there are two to three alumni who will be sitting in the panel, and they will be selecting you for your interview. So I had two very old alums. I think one was 2008 batch and one 2010 batch. So and they were really nice, and it's never a stressful interview. As when it comes to ISB, it's very conversational in nature. They will ease you down to the interview process. They know that you are very stressed out, and they'll take 5 to 10 minutes of your time understanding what you're doing, what are your hobbies, what are your interests. So from that point of view, it's very nice. And my questions around my interview was more related to my hobbies, why I really want to do an MBA, because I was already a manager. I was a supply chain manager at ITC where I used to work before. So I was already a manager. So they wanted to understand what was my thought process of doing an MBA when I was already a manager before. And lastly, they wanted to understand, how, my future goal of, getting into marketing was connected to my past history, because came from an engineering background and wanted to move to brands. So these were the broad three questions that they were really intrigued about and wanted to understand my opinion on it. I think they were very cognizant of the fact that I was kind of stressed and I was kind of nervous. So they did not really ask any off-topic questions. So that was also really good. So and this kind of experience is the same with across all my peers, whoever I have talked to. So this is how an ISB interview generally goes.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of nice to know, because if you're the person getting the 15-minute interview and you hear somebody else is getting an hour, you're going to be wondering, like, did I do something wrong? And they wanted to cut the interview short, but that's not the case. It's really it's how long it takes to decide whether or not we're eliminating you from this round, or we're going to keep going with you. You mentioned that just now that you wanted to kind of pivot from more of a technical background, more of that like supply chain management, into more brand and marketing. There are different specializations at the PGP program. How did you decide upon doing a specialist in strategy and marketing? What was your thought process with that?
All right. Before ISB itself, I had because I was already working at an FMCG company, and FMCG company is primarily related to brands, and so I had a knack for marketing there itself. But the thing where strategy came into place, it was more related to while after I got my admit at ISB, and ISB does not really give you a chance to think what kind of electives you want to take, because you have to think that in advance before joining ISB or in the first 2 terms at ISB, because it's just a 1-year course, right? So that way ISB has a very good and very collaborative alumni network. And I have never seen any of my alumni if I send them if I hit them a message on WhatsApp or send them a message on LinkedIn, they don't take more than 12 hours to hit a reply back, and generally we get on a call in the same weekend. So that's how great they are in helping their juniors and their other cohort members, sorry, their other MBA community from the same college. So I went I talked to few alumni, and those were some of them were my ex-colleagues as well. So I wanted to show them that I have interest in this and this. What do you think I should go forward with as my elective list and my specialization? And they suggested, because I wanted to understand finance, marketing, and the what are the latest trends in the market. So all of those things, you get in a strategy specialization. So that's why, and they suggested that strategy would be the best fit, and ISB has one of the best strategy professors, and even visiting professors that come to ISB have are from Kellogg or Wharton. So from that point of view, I thought strategy specialization is a thing that I should go forward with.
Yeah, and then I guess moving, the lovely alarms going off out there. Gotta love Central London. So going back to even before, you said they talked to you about like your hobbies and what you were interested in during your interview. How involved were you on the on like in the student community with regards to what clubs and organizations you joined, what kind of events you went to, what were the opportunities that were available that you took up?
Sure. So again, ISB does a really good job in engaging the cohort community. So I was, and it's mandatory for each student to join three professional clubs. Just as a member, you need not be a part of the organizing core team. Like you need not be a president or a vice president in the club, but you have to be mandatorily a part of three clubs. So I'm part of the consulting club, I was part of the marketing club, and I was part of the a business technology club, which is more related to product management. So so these were the three clubs that I was part in. I was very active in marketing and consulting club. I was not a core team member. I did not used to organize events. I was more organized towards some external events that ISB conducts. So ISB has this management fest called Advaita. So I was the lead coordinator for that. So it happens at the same time with both the campuses, the Hyderabad and the Mohali campus. So there are two lead coordinators across both campuses, and I was the lead coordinator for Mohali campus, where we have to conduct case competitions, and we have to invite participation from other B schools in and around India. We get around more than 25,000, 30,000 participants, and across some 8 to 10 case competitions, I would say. And that's what we manage along with our academics. So and ISB has a lot of staff or administrative people engaged in helping the students conduct the entire thing. And I myself have a few of my cohort members as my team members for the management fest. So that was something I was involved in. It happened in October, and post that I was more involved towards. We had our placements, and after that we moved on to just chilling after we got placed into different companies. We mostly played sports or something. So I was a very active player of football, and there's a game called Ultimate Frisbee. I don't really know whether
Yeah.
you guys play the same thing
We
or
know
not.
it. We know it.
Yeah, so I did not know how to play Ultimate Frisbee. I learned it at ISB, and I was one of the best players of Ultimate Frisbee at ISB. So just last week before our graduation, we had our Frisbee tournament, and my team won. So that was really amazing. So these are the different activities that you have to do. You just get involved. You're just passing by, and then at night 1 o'clock you will see people playing football. So and just when you're returning from the library, you will just throw off your bags, put on your shoes, and come to the field and play. So all of these things at ISB, it's really amazing, and you just happen to get involved somehow or the other. Either your friends pull you into, or you just get involved. It's just like that.
Well, that's amazing, and I think that's really nice too, of the fact that there's no kind of segregation of you're going to go do this club, I'm going to do this club. Where like everybody is very interested in getting to know one another and actually like socialize and, well, I mean, business schools like to call it networking, but ultimately socializing. It's also really nice too, the fact that it's only a 1 year program, but you are able to get involved in so many different things from the get-go, like even pushing you to be a part of, or that you have to join 3 different student organizations. It's a great way to get to know different people. So before we started this call, and you've kind of alluded to it a little bit, there are very different kind of seniorities in the class, whether or not you have the 2 years or you have the 26 years, like the person who's in the military. And we talked about it a little bit before jumping on this call, but how have you found that in terms of learning from your peers, and the different things that people from different backgrounds can really offer up? You've talked about it a little bit, but I just want to dive into it a little bit more.
Sure, sure. So I'll just take so ISB has 8 terms in total, uh, 1.5 months for each term. So in the first 4 terms, you have so the people members of your group of your study group are chosen by ISB itself. So from that point onwards, the first day onwards, you are a part of a study group that is going to be your nearest family. And I'll just take the example of my study group itself. So I had a person who was an architect. He had a work ex of 8 years. I had a person who was in the oil and gas industry. He had an experience of 6 years. The other person who was talking, she had just experience of 2 years. She was working in Reliance. She was an IT consultant. There was someone who was a consultant, social impact in the impact consulting space. So she had a work ex of 3 years, the same as me, and I was from a FMCG industry, same experience of 3 years. So all in all, I had 2 people senior to me, 2 people junior to me. So ISB does not really pay that much importance to seniority or junior concepts. It's more about learning from each other. So we learned a lot. So from the architect, so whenever there's a data heavy course or a number heavy course, quant heavy course, so the architect was not really able to get his hands on it or wrap his heads around the concepts very easily. So we took special attention. That was job of our study group to make take everyone together while we are going forward, because if anybody lags, and you have to spend a lot more time in working on the group projects, right? So we made it a habit among ourselves to focus on everything together. If someone is lagging, it will be my responsibility to pick him up, let him come to our pace, and vice versa. So many of the creative aspects of let's say a marketing course where we have to design some creatives or posters, so he used to really help us because he had that knack of had that ideation capability. So all in all, there's no seniority and junior concepts in ISB, but you will so coming back to your main question of understanding and learning from your peers, uh, it's very dynamic when even during a class, a lot of your component is focused on class participation, which you would have at your business schools as well. So and the kind of and no but the professor, not even the professor or the faculty or the study members really focus or really stop someone in expressing their experiences that they had over the past years. And ISB encourages, even all the people in the classroom encourage follow up questions related to that, even though the topic goes topic is entirely something away from whatever is being taught in the class. It's more about collaborative learning and what you can take out of those experiences, rather than just sticking up to your curriculum and sticking up to your syllabus and not really moving away from that. So that's how ISB helps, starting from a study group formation point of view to the classroom and beyond. It promotes a lot of interaction among the cohort and collaborative support from the cohort.
Yeah, you've talked, I mean, everything that you've said so far about the program and about the school has been raving reviews. It sounds like you had not only an amazing time with meeting all these different people, but also that you learned a lot in the different learning experiences, whether or not that is through organizing the management fest or you're in your group with the people who are both senior and junior to you, and with respect to the levels of work experience that they have. So to kind of close it off, I guess if you were looking back at, well, now you're completely done the program, you've graduated, you've thrown your hat up, as you said. Is there any advice that you would give somebody who is both starting out this whole process of going and applying for the GMAT, or not applying for the GMAT, writing the GMAT, applying for university, and then also kind of when they're out there? Like, I know that's a very large question, but any advice that you would give to somebody who's starting this process?
Sure. So again, something that I've already touched upon in our conversation. So I would really just say that you should just not focus on getting your GRE score or your GMAT score. Rather than you should focus on developing an overall profile. You should tick off all the boxes, or sorry, most of the boxes, rather than just ticking off the 770 GMAT score box. So you should focus on having some social projects. You should focus on taking up more work at your professional sphere. You should focus on having some hobbies or interests, and of course, you should have a decent GMAT score. So that's the only advice I would say. And 5 to 6 months of time is enough to for anyone to have a well-rounded application of getting selected and getting shortlisted for any B school. So that's the only advice I would give.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. I think everyone who is watching this is going to be like, I need to go to this school. Everyone there seems amazing. So
Yeah.
really appreciate your advice and also your explanation on the different ways that you can get involved and how the interview process works and what it's like being in this environment with very smart people, both from more of a technical background, but also from a more of a kind of social science background. So this has been really helpful. So thank you so much. And I'm sure that everyone who is watching this really enjoyed it. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me here. Thanks for your time.